Now,
And
Sofia.
then before we move on, so first a big thanks to Pavel and Bartosz for this really inspiring presentation. And my impression is that even within the Commission, FISMA is one of the forerunners who go ahead by example. They are one of the the domain which went through this famous fitness check on regulatory reporting, not the only one though. So there is, for example, the environmental domain or energy, which is also now looking into how to improve reporting. And then this also triggered the need somehow to don't let these super ideas and initiatives just in their little sector or big sector, so in their silo, but somehow cross and build bridges between the policy sectors also within the Commission. And this was behind creating or regulatory reporting community of practice. So we heard, for example, today already concrete ideas from FISMA, like creating a manual for policy officers how to draft reporting obligations, or going on with the Center of Excellence, really giving support and guidance how to put this in practice, or now just literally the reporting dictionary. So I think all these initiatives would be very much appreciated in other domains, and this is what our community of practice looking at, learning from, again, reusing and just cutting the burden, reusing what the forerunners already did and picking up the generic elements which could be applicable to all. And Cecile will just show you this first set of regulatory reporting principles, which you will see, I think, go very much in the direction Pavel showed us for how to set reporting obligations, but would be also applicable in other policy sectors and maybe even in national contexts. So with that, go ahead and I will do my little promotion in the chat for where you can look for the community, and also those who are not in the Commission, where you can find more information about all this work. So thanks, and Cecile, the floor is yours.
Okay, so can you go to the next slide, please? In fact, DG FISMA and Pavel and Bartosz are quite active in our community. So yes, don't be surprised that you will have a déjà vu impression when I will explain what I have to explain. So, but what we did, and also thanks to Wavestone, who is here in the call, is to study more DGs. So DG FISMA is one of them, but also DG Environment, ENER, etc. And we came to the conclusion that there are very generic aspects that it would be great to share, and to also to build this community to have a common grounds to start with, especially because regulatory reporting, if it's domain specific about what is reported, the process is essentially the same or may have some variations, but so aspects that should be propagated would be best propagated for inspiration to others. So our first approach was to understand the challenges, and they were already mentioned by Pavel and Bartosz. So I won't go too much again in that, but what I can tell you is that it has been quite impressive to see that they were shared. So it's not only in DG FISMA that you can find those challenges, you find them everywhere. So the multiple reporting, so the same information, but in a bit different, with a different definition, needing to go in depth into a different way of collecting data. The lack of interoperability, of reusability of information, sometimes also poor quality, and creating a lot of burden, both from the side of the data providers, but also to the data consumers. So at a higher level, this is quite shared across the DGs and the agencies, so the community we it's true that we did not have enough resource to go to the people the stakeholders that really provide the information at lower level, at national level. And for this, I also it was very, for me, very interesting that we see the effort that is done by DG FISMA in this area. So, but as we had to, the challenge of addressing all sectors, we use the testimonials from the DGs or agencies in the different sectors. So To address those challenges, we came with 5 principles that are focused on setting regulatory reporting requirements. So we also understood that it was where the most problematic aspect was to be found. So if in law you have requirements that do not allow for a smooth implementation, then you would be, the rest of the process is jeopardized. So could you please go to the next slide, please? And so we came to these requirements that address, to these principles that are to be met by setting the regulatory reporting requirements. So one, and we also heard about it, and here it's a bit generalized, is to be fit for purpose, meaning that there are the policy objectives that guide the process of setting those requirements, and the requirements that are set should be minimalistic, so just supporting as they should the policy objectives. And just to say also that these principles, they can be applicable to any domain, and they are not just limited to the financial domain. Then coherency, you also heard about it earlier on, but which means that it's at least it's good enough for the financial domain as well, that coherence is needed, meaning that all the properties that are needed to set a regulatory reporting requirement, and there you find which is the data, the concept, or which data is needed, when is it needed, with which frequency is it needed. All these properties must be set in coherence with the existing acquis. Voilà. And acquis in the sector, but also cross-sector, as some of those concepts that are shared across sector. And if I take LEI, we were talking about legal entity identifier. I believe it's used cross-sector already. Clear. So in order to be easy to implement and easy to also to provide, if you have a definition that is not good enough, then of course it creates a lot of confusion, and people who have to provide this information maybe have more time to understand it than to provide the information. And I don't know where granularity should be, but maybe it's in coherent, but also it can be dealt in clearness of the requirements. So the level of granularity that is required will also, and I advocate for a low level of granularity, would make things more clear, because if you don't have to transform your data before you provide it, then you are it's easier to understand. Well, it's not written in the slide. It's okay. Technology driven, indeed, and it's partially. It was also addressed partially by Sophia first, and then by Pavel. The evolution of technology should also support transforming this manual data entry into more automated ways of getting the data, or pulling the data instead of, yes, pulling the data instead of having people pushing it to the supervisory entity or the regulatory entity as the overall vocabulary. So if we go at a higher level, it's not only supervisory, we call it regulatory authority. So there, the use of sensors, the use of satellite images or satellite services could support better or more easily the, well, not in the financial domain. I have no clue. In the financial domain, maybe robotics, automation would support it. I did not think of this for the financial domain, but overall, these techniques could support better and make it reduce the burden for data acquisition or collection. And then interoperability, indeed, and it was also mentioned, you see, we are very much streamlined. The use of standards and international standards or European standards for maybe for other domains than finance, are very welcome and more than welcome, because of course they reduce the heterogeneity of the data management. So the more you will stick to standards, the more reusable it will be, the more also clear it will be, and it will support cross-domain exchanges of information. And just to add that in order to achieve interoperability, the management of metadata about the data is quite important, so that they can be easily explorable and discoverable by others. So with this, so it's a very high level view, of course, and it shows that in the financial domain, in fact, all of this is there. And I can only wish we would have had something about the involvement, the inclusion of stakeholders, which we don't have. But this is also food for exchange. So please don't hesitate now to ask your questions, and also to come back to us for exchange on this. Thank you. So did you have questions? So just happiness for now. So no questions.
Okay, so in that case, we can just move on, and because we are also have some happy end year greetings, and we would like to also do ours, so we can go on and show our upcoming events. Shall I take this? So for the next steps, okay, so we will, of course, continue the work we started now, regulatory reporting. And even if you didn't put your question now, you are absolutely free and have time to come to the various channels I indicated, and also to our join up community to start discussing certain topics, and also really raise or highlight the points you would like to learn more or discuss more, so we adapt also our content accordingly. And this very much applies also for the future webinars. So we are really grateful for our audience, because this year we organized already 4 webinars, and we are aiming to continue this virtual breakfast habits in the next year. But really, just drop us an email on your functional mailbox. You can see here EU legal interoperability, ECEurope.eu, because if anything is important for you, you believe it really leads to smoother implementation of the legislation, we can explore, we can find nice speakers and create a new event to share. So with that, we then just really wrap up, and then it's our turn to wish you happy holidays. Eventually, I just wanted to show you, I don't know whether I can share my screen, but some of you, okay, I think that it's working. So it's the very same thank you slide, just I added a little bit of this bellissimo. Some of you are already subscribed to our newsletter, and those of you haven't, you can also do so at our join up page. And in our December session, we just wanted to find one magic word which describes our first year of the community, better legislation for smoother implementation. And we came up with this Italian gorgeous bellissimo word, because it's high, super nice, with the abbreviation of our community. But really, I would like to thanks you that you show up, that you are raising your questions and discuss with us. So I wish for all of us, because besides of course good health and world peace, that we keep in touch and we can discuss further topics in 2021 with you. So with that, many thanks for your presence today, and we will share our takeaways and the presentations later on in the coming days with you. Bye-bye.